characteristics of all living things is that they can reproduce and pass their genetic code on to the next generation. So here's an example of a plant in my garden called a red bell pepper. And those fruits contain the seeds that will start the next generation. These cherry tomatoes are quite prolific, as you can see. This plant puts a lot of energy into making these fruits, which of course we love to eat. But for the plant, the real purpose in making these fruits is to reproduce. We'll pick one of these and break it open and see what's inside. We're going to pop this baby open, squeeze out the insides, and check that out. Those are all seeds that contain the genetic code for the next generation of cherry tomatoes. When you think about it, every living thing is trying to reproduce. Plants produce berries or seeds or nuts or spores. Animals produce kids and grandkids. Even this magnolia tree is trying to reproduce. Check out this pod that developed from the flower earlier this summer. Just what do you think all these flowers are for? This plant's trying to reproduce like crazy. That's the main goal. All living things can reproduce and pass on their DNA code to the next generation. All living things absorb molecules from the environment that contain energy. Absorbing those energy-rich molecules into their cells. And then they convert that energy into ATP in order to do useful tasks. That's known as cellular respiration. Plants absorb energy from their environment too, initially as sunlight. In the process of photosynthesis, they convert the energy of sunlight into sugars. Then, in cellular respiration, they extract the energy from those sugars and create ATP in order to do useful tasks, such as growing. There's a robin down there with some kind of fruit. So it's going to be able to get the energy. Oh, there's a blue jay that took off with that fruit. So these birds are absorbing those energy-rich molecules into their bodies so that they can make ATP. This hummingbird is getting the energy it needs to make its ATP from the artificial nectar. If we didn't eat energy-rich foods, well, we wouldn't be able to make any ATP through cellular respiration, and we definitely wouldn't be able to walk around. All living things would die if they could not make ATP. All life maintains homeostasis. Doesn't matter what you are, bacterium, a giraffe, a plant cell, a human, you gotta control what enters and leaves. Now on a large scale, I can maintain homeostasis by eating this banana. So I'm regulating what goes into my body. And if you're a little pill bug, you might be looking for a nice, moist place to hide so you don't dry out in the hot sun. There you go, in you go. Talk about maintaining homeostasis. My word, just check out this aloe plant that we have growing in our kitchen. Let's just take this thing and cut it down the middle, like that. And we're going to open this thing up and take a look at it. And you can see all this gelatinous goo that's in there. That's basically a way for this plant to store a bunch of moisture and survive in an extreme arid environment where it may not rain for months. Believe it or not, even individual cells maintain homeostasis. Cells of the red onion. You can see the cell wall for each of those cells and the pink cytoplasm. There is also a cell membrane that is just inside the cell wall. And that cell membrane is what we call selectively permeable. It'll let some things in and it'll let some things out. These cells maintain homeostasis so that they can absorb the food and nutrients they need and eliminate the waste products that they don't need. All living things can evolve over time into new species. Let's take a look underneath this piece of wood. And we see all these isopods. You might know them as pill bugs or sow bugs. They are all unique individuals with unique genetic codes in this population. Some may be naturally better able to survive harsh conditions like in full sunlight where it gets maybe quite dry. So they are better adapted for their environment and they'll survive and reproduce. All living things show levels of organization. For example, me, I have an eye, I have an ear, I have hair. This plant shows levels of organization. It has stems, it has leaves, it has flowers that produce seeds, and it might even produce big edible roots underground, like this gigantic red onion. Check that out. And this red onion definitely shows levels of organization. Here we go, down into the eyepiece. Alright, we can start to see some of the red, pink colored cells of the red onion in this microscope view. Each one of those little rectangular chambers is an actual living cell. This microscope doesn't have enough resolution to see organelles, such as the nucleus or the chloroplast. We're pretty much just seeing the cell walls and the pink cytoplasm of the red onion. Another example of organization. Look at all these beautiful flowers from the bee balm. Here's the exoskeleton from a cicada. Talk about lots of detail and levels of organization. They got him on the stand of the dissecting scope. Let's see if we can go down in there and see what he looks like. That's where the eye was at any rate. There's part of the head, and there's a big appendage coming off the head. You can see little fibers on there. Coming in on the next higher power, you can see where the eye used to be, and then off to the side there's some little hairs growing on those appendages. That's some pretty good detail. All living things have the characteristic of going through stages of development. They start out as a spore or a seed or an embryo, and over time they mature. They might develop into a little baby plant like this, and then after a few weeks turn into a mature plant. They're going to go through the stages of reproduction so that they can pass on their genetic information to the next generation. All living things pass through their final stage. They grow old and they die. Obviously, one of the characteristics of life is movement. This is my little granddaughter, Elsa, at the beach. Look at these little ants moving around. I put some honey out here on a rock to see who would come for lunch. You might not think that plants move, but hey, check this vine out. It's growing really fast. How about this centipede? See if I can get it to move. Oh, there it goes. And back to the bumblebees. They're really moving today. I can't really show you cells moving, even though I have a microscope. It's not powerful enough to really see that kind of detail. But just so you know, cells have cilia that beat and flagella that wave around. They move. Well, you've seen this video before of the red onion cells. Clearly, each cell is distinct from the others. Life is made up of either eukaryotic cells, which are more complicated, than prokaryotic cells, which are primarily bacteria. But all life is made of at least one or more cells.
If you feel like that's what you want.